U.S. high school students made no progress on recent international achievement exams, falling further in the global rankings. It's Tuesday, December 3rd. Welcome to Lunch Break. I'm Kelsey Hubbard. These test results released today are raising questions about America's ability to compete in the global economy. Joining me now is Wall Street Journal reporter Stephanie Banchero. Stephanie, thanks for joining us from Chicago today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us about this test. Who is it administered by and what does it aim to measure?
So this test is given every 3 years by the OECD, and they give it to all of the developing countries and about a total of 65 countries. And they test students in math, science, and reading. And it basically just aims to measure whether or not they can take what they've learned, so their knowledge, and apply it to real life situations.
And what are the key results that we're looking at, especially that we learned today?
Yeah. So, the big news today for U.S. students, it tests 15-year-olds. And the big news here is that the U.S. is basically stagnating. So we have not moved at all since 2000 on any of the exams, while other countries are moving forward, and some of them are even passing us by. For example, Poland and Ireland used to perform right at our level, and now they've moved ahead of us on all the exams. And the U.S. kids are still just right about at the middle of the pack in every exam.
So what is this really telling us about our ability to compete in this global economy, in this global world, as we have these students that are seemingly falling further and further behind?
Yeah, and one thing is that actually in math, they did a little bit worse than the developed countries. So, yeah, a lot of people this of course is going to start the hand wringing about whether or not our schools are properly preparing students. There have been some studies that show that PISA results can be predictive of economic growth. So, yeah, it brings up a lot of questions about whether or not our kids are actually ready to compete in a global economy.
And when we look at this test, obviously there are a lot of factors that go into the results. What role do socioeconomic differences play in the U.S. results?
Yeah, so there's no doubt that socioeconomic status of the student plays a role in achievement. That's true in the United States. It's true in every country. They figured that about 15% of the variation in test scores in the U.S. can be explained by socioeconomic status. So basically what that means is that a student that's low income is less likely to score high than a student that is high income. What's interesting about that, though, is that that variation is bigger in the United States than it is in many other countries. So the difference between those two is greater in the U.S. than other countries.
And Stephanie, we're looking at these results after many schools have already undergone decades of policy overhauls. So what can we expect now, seeing these results? Anything coming out of the politics in Washington or from schools across the country? What's going to happen now?
Yeah, so, you use the word politics, which is a great word. Education, there's a lot of politics involved in education policy. What you're going to see is people on both sides seizing on these numbers. I think the union folks have already started to say that these results prove that, the decades of reform led by Arne Duncan and before that George Bush's No Child Left Behind have been a failure. They're already saying that. Some other folks will say, no, what we really need to do is look and see, what is Finland doing or what is Shanghai doing or Poland doing. It's questionable, I think, what we can learn from other countries. I do think it's worth looking. So I think what this is going to set off is a bunch of finger pointing and hand wringing. What ultimately happens will remain to be seen. You never know in education.
Right, and Stephanie, is there one bright spot where something was working that we could point to here? Leave people on sort of a note of anything going on that we could point to that's really working for these kids.
Yeah, I think the one positive note out of this was how well there were 3 states in the U.S., Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Florida, that tested enough of their kids to get statewide data. And Massachusetts particularly did very well on all of the subjects. And I think that's a good place to look for other states to look to see, okay, what did they do? And basically, they launched reforms 20 years ago that they put more money into education, they raised the standards for kids, they raised accountability for schools, and they've seen, steady progress over time. So that might be one place to look. They didn't sort of knee-jerk around changing all their policies. They sort of plowed ahead with the policies they had.
Right. Well, certainly, hopefully we can have some states follow their lead. It's certainly an important issue. Stephanie, thank you so much for breaking it down for us.
Thanks so much.